Trauma. Everyone has it. No one talks about it. It seems easier to stay silent, ignore it, or stuff it than it does to honor it, learn from it, and finally heal. Trauma is debilitating, yet so often we suffer in silence. Trauma is not meant to be battled alone, and we are no longer going to suffer in silence. Together, we are creating a safe place to speak, to share our stories, and grow our strength as we heal. Together, we are giving a voice to those who have been silenced, bringing darkness into light, and letting God use our stories. Today, we find ourselves again. We relight our spark and let it light up the world. Stop SIS is a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating on issues of trauma and trafficking, as well as the amazing power of the healing journey. Welcome to Stop SIS. Hey, you guys. Welcome back to Stop Suffering in Silence. My name is Denise Walsh, and I am here with Rachel Timothy. And both of us have had a big last week.
True. Let's just be real here.
Yes, I spent the last week at a Dream Life adventure in Costa Rica and just got back a day or so ago. So I'm just pooped from traveling and hosting, and it's always so much fun, and we'll tell you guys about it in a bit. But I'm kind of coming down from that high, and then Rachel had a full knee replacement a week or so ago, so she's been on a physical healing journey. How are you feeling?
I'm doing okay. A little in pain still and a little nauseous from it. So you're exhausted. I'm in pain. This should be great. I'm so excited.
Well, we haven't caught up. We haven't talked much this past week as I was gone, and I saw on the Stop SIS Instagram a very pointed, strong, powerful message that you shared about a church that handled an abuse scandal or, upset. I don't know what the word is, but handled it well.
Yes.
And so I thought, I don't even know the story. So I'm interested to hear what happened, how they're handling it, and what you would say this is what a church should do.
Yeah. So I think it hit me in just a very sensitive way. Number one, this is a church I used to attend for almost a year when we lived in this town. Eastview Christian Church was our home church. It became our family. And while we were there, we got to witness and experience the love of God's people through this church in ways that just go above and beyond what a lot of churches do when they are loving and shepherding their flock. And so we have a near and dear place in our heart for this church. But I think also the reason it touched so close to home was, this is abuse in the church. And that's one of the things that makes me sick. And what seems to make it even worse is when the church handles it poorly. And this was a situation where I got word, it may have been about a week and a half ago, from a friend of mine who still goes to that church. And of course it was like, have you heard? I'm like, no, I haven't. What's going on? And she kind of just spilled her guts and poured out all of this factual information of what was going on. And I don't know all the ins and outs of what occurred, but from what is public knowledge that I understand is there was the son of the lead pastor. He was pastoring as well at Eastview Christian Church. And back in 2016, there were several letters written to the church saying that he had had affairs with adult women that was kind of manipulative, and some of them were staff members, women, and but it all kind of got somehow pushed aside. I think my understanding is it happened 3 times. And by the 3rd time, Eastview, the head pastor, which is Mike Baker, asked for his son to kind of go on, and he then found him another church where he could pastor at in Arizona. And so it all kind of died down. Well, then within the last however many weeks, word came out that he's doing the same thing now at the new church, where the new church handled it completely different. They got behind the pulpit and said, "Nuh-uh, not in our church. This ain't happening." They were completely transparent. They were very vulnerable. They fired him on the spot. Like, this is not happening in our church, not happening to our women. And of course, then it goes back to Eastview. Like, wait a minute, what was going on there? And as people started to dig deeper, I think a few more letters were written. It started to expose that there were some things that were probably brushed under the rug and not handled correctly back in 2016. And so, as I've talked to a few different people from this church, I mean, they're wrecked because this pastor, Mike Baker, has been their pastor for, goodness, I want to say like 30 years, maybe more. Like, he's been there a long time. He's, led how many weddings, done how many funerals, been a part of these people's lives for how long. And now all of a sudden it's like the congregation is saying, no, he did something wrong and we need to bring it to the open. But it's just extremely hard for the church to hold both in their hands of, this was my pastor, but now something wrong was done. And how do we move forward as a church?
Well, and my guess is that the congregation didn't fully know about the letters in 2016.
Correct.
That was just a quiet exit.
Yes. And so I get this information and my heart is broken for the church. My heart's broken for the leaders, the staff, because I know a lot of them. This is where I spoke one of the first times, was at Eastview Christian Church, and shared my story. And so like my heart broke for them, and I had no idea how they were going to handle this. But last Sunday, it was just days after my surgery, so I didn't physically go to my church, but I tuned in online to Eastview Christian Church, and I got to listen to a friend of mine preach, Ben Miller, fantastic guy. He works for the church, and he shared a sermon of hope, and it was incredible. And I heard things like him saying, joy maybe isn't right now. Joy maybe comes in the morning. Like, maybe right now, all we have is the hope that joy does come in the morning. And right now, we are going to not be okay. And we're going to be okay with not being okay, because that's where we're at. This is the season. It's like the Saturday between the crucifixion and the resurrection. We're in the unknown. We're hurting. There's not necessarily joy right now, but we're not going to act like everything's fine, because it's not. And that's okay, because God is still with us. And there was just this hope and this vulnerability. And he cried behind the pulpit, and he's like, I'm hurting with you. Very real, very raw. But then when it was all said and done, they had an elder come up and share kind of where the church is at. And this is where I was almost like, guys, fist pumping in the air. I was like, yes, thank you, Jesus. They get it. Because it is trauma informed, it is victim focused. Guys, you just don't see that very often. Most of the time, you see churches who are wanting to protect the pastor, protect people from knowing the truth, but they're not that way. And so I want to share with you guys a little bit of what they're doing right. And the reason I'm so passionate about this is I want to get word out about it is, number one, I want to encourage Eastview, because when I shared that reel that you saw, I then got a message from somebody there that said I was the only positive words that they heard concerning their church that entire week. And that broke my heart, because they're fighting a battle, a huge war right now, and they're doing a good job at it, but they need encouragement. And then second, other churches could learn from this. So let me kind of share some of their elder updates, is what they call it. And it's out in the open. It's on their website. You can go there. They also talk about it almost every Sunday during their church service. But so this was back on February 25th. It says, in recent days, a series of allegations have been made by past members and staff of Eastview Christian Church. The communications specifically address alleged instances of abuse against adult women by Caleb Baker. So that's the son of the pastor. He was a former pastor, as well as specific instances of alleged abusive power dynamic and cover-up by church leadership in 2016. The elders and ECC leadership are committed to responding to these allegations in a godly way that prioritize truth and the safety and healing of past and present staff members of our church and to others who have been harmed by abuse or an unhealthy culture. All right, now listen to this part, because this is where I get excited. We are committed to pursue all allegations to determine what occurred, and if there are unknown survivors of abuse, those survivors deserve to be heard so they can begin the healing process. We are committed to responding to these allegations in an open and transparent manner. Isn't that awesome?
So they're saying, we know that we only know the tip of the iceberg. There
Yes.
could be more that people haven't come forward with yet, and we want to give them space to do so.
Exactly. Imagine if you are a victim who has been suffering in silence in that church or in that community, and you see that, you start to feel like, okay, maybe I can trust these people again.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really cool. They are providing counseling. Counseling will be available to those who would like to speak to someone. We anticipate partnering with local counseling services, so they're providing this for free for anybody who needs it, so that anyone who may have been harmed can obtain services from someone not associated with Eastview if they like. We understand, this is huge, we understand that some may have lost trust in ECC or want to remain anonymous. Our hope is that through these partnerships, we can offer healing to those who no longer wish to find healing at ECC. Again, acknowledging it.
Mm-hmm. And saying we don't need to be the ones that fix it.
Right.
We know that we have to earn back your trust, which is different than a church saying, oh, just forgive and move on. They're saying, no, we understand that trust has been broken and we don't expect you to even want to come to us.
Yes.
We're going to provide a resource if you need support either way.
Yes. And, a lot of times churches will say, well, we still want you to come to our church. They're saying, no, your healing comes first. You come first, not you coming to our church, not you as another number in our church congregation. Your healing comes first. So you go where you need to go. Man. Okay, sorry. Here's another thing that I had learned. So not long after they made those decisions, they then almost immediately get Mike Baker's resignation. He resigns. And so they have a letter in here, and it talks about how they decided to do a third-party investigation. So that means somebody else is coming in, not the elders making these decisions, not somebody who's emotionally attached, but somebody from the outside looking in. And they want to make sure that these victims have somebody else to go share their story to, not sit down with an elder that they feel intimidated to, but somebody who understands and is trauma informed, maybe, and on the outside. As soon as the elders and the staff made that decision, Mike Baker resigned because he sees there's no issue. There's no problem. There shouldn't be a third-party investigation. And so when talking to some of my people who go there, they said this was huge because it's very, very hard when Mike Baker, he's the leader of the church, he makes the decisions, and we are not agreeing with what he's saying. We have to decide either for the victim or for him. And they chose for the victim. And Mike Baker, as a result, resigned.
What negative comments are they getting right now?
I didn't ask that, but my guess is there's people who still see Mike Baker as innocent, Caleb Baker as innocent, or this isn't as big as people are making it. Maybe victim blaming, those sort of things.
My thought is they're like, why didn't that happen in 2016?
Maybe some are that way.
Like Arizona, you get props.
Mm-hmm.
You get let's go talk to them and see what they did immediately, right? Yep. Now, they didn't have the emotional connection to this Caleb character as Mike does, right? So it's probably easier for them to see the problem at hand. Like, zero women should ever feel unsafe amongst a pastor, period.
Yes, period.
You know what I mean? And so I would be interested in even digging into the Arizona church and seeing what they did. And my hope would be that Eastview learned from them.
It
The
sounds like,
elders learned from them and said, wait a minute, we can't just shove this under the rug like we did before.
yeah. And that's what I kind of like about this is they're saying we screwed up
Yeah.
and now we want to try to do better. One of the things that it does talk about in these elder updates is it appears that, remember me telling you those initial letters that were sent in 2016 when they addressed those women, they then said, no, it's not true, we didn't send those, which is a very common response from a trauma survivor when they get faced by authority. Mind you, they were just abused by authority by Caleb Baker, and now they're being addressed by authority. Fear, shame, all of that comes in, and they end up saying, no, I didn't send that. So that could have been part of the problem with the elders.
Well, you wonder, was that back in 2016 or is that now?
2016.
Okay. Okay. I wonder now, because again, often what we hear, right, is people feel like they're the only ones.
Yeah.
And so not only is there a handful from the Eastview church, but now they're like perpetrators don't stop. So he went to Arizona and is doing it again.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, and I hope that that validates their experience.
It's got to. Sure. And that's probably why now the ball is rolling and things are happening. But just one of the things that I heard from a staff member that was very heartfelt was how hard it was to go against the leader of your church. And that I
Can
think,
I be honest? That's
yeah.
so weird to me because
Mhm.
it should be right and wrong should be right and wrong. Like, I don't understand why these people are put on a pedestal to be closer to God. They're not. They're just
Right.
human. And I don't understand this thing like they can do no wrong. It's just shocking to me that it's that hard. And again, it's this power dynamic of thinking that this person is better. I don't more powerful. Maybe it's a leadership position and people are following them. I don't know, but it doesn't make sense to me that the lines of right and wrong would be blurred ever, especially in a situation like this.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think the years of being under his leadership, the years of
They
thinking
were
he
groomed
did,
too.
and yeah. Because now when I talk to people, they see the narcissistic side of him, but it's like when you until you break free, that is when you recognize, holy cow, this is what's been going on.
Right.
I think that moment of severing and making their own decisions, knowing it was right, was a turning point for this church. And this is a mega church. We're talking like 5,000 people.
Well, I know, I'm sure if you guys have heard of Willow Creek in Chicago, Bill Hybels he has written a ton of books. He does the Willow Creek Leadership Summit. Like, he traveled and spoke, and his daughter is a speaker. And right before he retired a few years ago, a staff member came forward and said that there was inappropriate stuff happening while they were traveling. And at first, I thought, you're an adult. Obviously, it's consensual if you are traveling and these things. And then I thought, wait a minute. No one should ever feel awkward or like a pastor is making a pass at them. Like, no woman should ever be put in that situation at all.
Right.
And so I know they did the rounds with people who like were connected to the leadership summits and things, and they actually asked me to do coffee. And I don't go to Willow Creek. Like, I actually went there when I was at Wheaton. I went there a few times. It was, 45 minutes away, but I was a part of the leadership summit. And so we went to coffee, and I remember them basically looking like a deer in headlights, like, how are you doing? And they didn't try to justify him. They just said, this sucks. And I said, and I told them my same situation that I said you, like, at first you defend him a little bit because you're like, what? No. But then you think, no one ever. And if you ever feel awkward in any way, like, that's a problem.
Right.
This is a black and white issue. But needless to say, he resigned quietly, and now there's other people that are leading this event. But I could see how that type of leader who has that type of influence, it would be a shocking thing to hear.
Yes. And I think when you hear that it's adult victims, you think, well, why didn't they just say no? Why
Right.
didn't they come tell? I mean, they're adults.
Well,
But
you
you
imagine yourself in that situation.
right. But you also have to think of like a therapist patient.
Right.
They're not allowed
No.
to have any relationships like that.
I
And
couldn't even say hi to clients in the grocery store if I saw them.
okay,
Like HIPAA
yeah.
laws, right? Like there's clear boundaries.
This is the same situation. He is a counselor, a shepherd, a leader of this person. And so there's going to be a power difference, whether you like it or not. And that's what these women were dealing with.
Yeah. Well, and you think of, I would think of myself in that situation, but I don't have the emotional string to this guy. I'm not the one who's traveling with him or making his schedule good, or, I'm not immersed. And I think that's the thing is these women, it's not like they're just random off the street. Like they were most likely enmeshed a bit or emotionally connected.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows if they desired approval or if there was this
Or
power
if there was
thing.
past abuse, that's not
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
And it's taking advantage of somebody who's already broken, or maybe they were in a marriage and maybe the perpetrator led them to believe they had done something seductive, and now they feel trapped because they don't know, what did I did is this my fault? I
Well,
mean,
because that person's being a jerk and lying and gaslighting. And
gaslighting, yes.
yeah.
But those are all tools that we don't think of. We just think, oh, she's a grown woman, she should say no and walk away.
Right.
There's so much more to it.
There's so much more to it. It's
And
sorry, I don't know what riled me up there, but I was like,
go for it, girl. I'm with you. But my point to all of this being, churches need this information. They need to be able to see not necessarily a step by step, but somewhat of how do we respond? Because, I mean, if it's not happened in your church, it's not currently happening in your church, it's most likely going to happen in your church because there are wolves in sheep's clothing everywhere.
so what can we take away? Number one, believe and support the victims and do an investigation immediately.
Yes, and do it a third party source. They have a group, and let's see, I can actually name them specifically because I think they should get props for what they do as well. Let me see. Wagon Maker Law is the name of, I think, Wagon Maker and Oberly. Anyway, it's a trauma-informed third-party investigative team to lead who's leading their investigation. They provide a clear and safe path for victims to communicate directly and without the involvement of Eastview's leadership or elders. And let's see. And then also, I think, so you have the third party investigative team, but then the transparency of it all. That's another thing that I like. They're not hiding behind closed doors, trying to deal with things. Like, this is a whole congregation, transparent. This is what's going on.
Right. Right. So number one, well, I think number one would really be either fire, let go, or pause the abuser, the alleged abuser, until further investigation.
Yes.
Right. I think that's step one, is to create safety in the church by getting the abuser out of there until more information is known. Number two, do a third party full-blown investigation, because what we always need to remember, right, is the thing that comes to the surface is just a little bit of the details.
Yes.
There's always more. There's always women who haven't said something. There's always more to the story that hopefully once the door is open, they'll get. But we always do need to remember, like, I know when you started telling people, you were like, boop, let me tell you just a little bit and see how you handle it. And I think that's always a reminder, is what we hear is just a smidgen of what's really happening.
Oh, so true. Yep.
And then 3 is transparency and being open and honest about what's right.
Yeah.
Like there shouldn't be gray area. And I've been in leadership for 15 years. And of course it's different. And I'm working with women and it's, it's not like they're following me to whatever, but I have been in leadership. And what we find is if leadership is gray, by the time you get down here, it's like wonky, right?
Mm-hmm.
So leadership has to have black and white. It has to be kind of straight and narrow because people are looking to you for what's okay behavior. And I think that leadership should be at a higher standard or expectation. Like we don't
Bible
put
speaks to
men
that.
and women in groups in 90-day U-turn, period. We don't typically like do even interviews with a man alone. Like we are just very cognizant of the boundaries. And I think that anybody in leadership should be.
Agreed. I will say another thing that kudos to Eastview as far as what they had done prior to this. They had been a part of the sex trafficking group in the community. They had been a part of trauma informed work. They had listened to my story. They were in the process of like getting my book in their library. Like they were bringing in trauma informed stuff to where when this happened, their first thought was no, victim first. And I think maybe back in 2016, that wasn't the case.
Yeah, you're right. You wonder how much they've learned over the past few years because of your story and the things that you guys started doing there. I don't know if you initiated any of it or if you just got there at the right time or they were
I
already
think I
starting to
got
do
there
it.
at the right time. Like these people were ready to say yes. I mean, it was Eastview who had woman after woman come and sit with me at my house when I was there when things weren't safe. It was Eastview who then started to do monthly meetings to give these women a trauma informed understanding of what sex trafficking is like. It was Eastview who then started to like counsel these women after they read my book. Like they wanted to help people understand.
So they were prepared.
They were prepared. They didn't know they were preparing themselves, but thank God they were.
Well, that's a really great, just real like a aha moment as well, is that if they hadn't been prepared, they could have easily shoved it under the rug again and said, oh, well, that's Arizona's problem.
Yeah.
But because their eyes had been opened, and again, we don't know if the elders made the decision to put it under the rug in 2016 or if the pastor even mentioned it to them. Like, who knows how it went down back then.
Right.
But this time, when it came forward,
It's different.
it was different.
Mm-hmm. And
That's
it's so
powerful.
stinking cool. Yeah. Like I get so excited for this church and what God is going to. I know they're hurting. Oh my goodness. I know they're hurting and they're confused and they're broken and my heart breaks for them. But I am so excited to see what God is going to do through this church moving forward.
And the next pastor they have,
Hmm.
as I'm sure now, well, there, who knows, they maybe have a few that will step into leadership now, but
Yeah, I'm not sure how all of that would go, but I think it does show get people into your churches who are trauma informed to speak.
yeah.
Ask us to come speak at your church.
Yes.
And let us teach you a little bit more, open your eyes a little bit more. It's funny. I was told once that the reason churches don't like to talk about these things is because they think once you talk about it, then it happens. But and in a way it kind of does. Once you talk about it, then eyes are opened and then people realize it's already there. It doesn't change whether it was there or not in the first place.
Right.
But wouldn't you rather live in truth and reality than with your head in the sand?
Yeah. Well, and you think of these survivors who've been suffering in silence for years because the first round got shoved under the rug.
Yes. And I mean, how many years is that? 7 years now. They have felt like they didn't matter.
Mm-hmm. And maybe they continued to blame themselves. And
I'm sure negative coping skills.
Right.
Yeah. Their family impacted.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. When you aren't believed, it's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's impressive. it's kind of cool to see the change as well.
Yes.
Because the elders were able to say, you know what, dude, like, you don't get to decide this. This is a black and white issue, and there should be 0 times a pastor crosses the line. And so even if it's a half a toe over the line, like, trust is broken and you're out of here. And I think that the elders educating themselves and growing that inner strength to say, you know what, this isn't tolerated, is a huge is why they did it differently this time.
Yeah. And it's going to make all the difference in the world. Oh, it's just so dang cool. I get like butterflies in my stomach.
And now people will feel safe there again.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, they will lose people. There will be people who walk away from the church because they are committed to a man, Mike Baker. They're committed to that person and not to God. And that's on them. But you are going to have a healthier church who understands who they are serving.
Right. And okay. Yes. Let's just remember that humans are human, right? And
Right.
if we're following a man, it's called a cult. Okay.
Let's just define this. And
Like, oh, geez. Okay. So, needless to say, the more that the truth is out in the open, the more healing can happen, the healthier the entire organization and congregation is going to be, and the healthier their relationship with God is going to be.
yes, yes. I think if this was any other organization, it would have been a no-brainer. But when you put it in a church and people start to think of like, oh, grace, that sweet thing of grace, and don't go against your elders or don't go against your pastor, that's where things start to get wonky. And it's sad because that's not how God is.
Right.
That's how we've turned our church soft.
Well, it's brainwashing. It's not scriptural.
It's
You
not
know what I mean? It's not.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm thinking of, I just recently watched a video about let me see what it's called. FLDS. So it's like Latter-day Saints, but the fundamentalists, and
Okay.
they have polygamy. And
Mm.
so, and they follow one man who's the prophet. And this one man is the one who speaks to God, and God gives him revelation that he then tells the crowd. And it could include, I mean, these men are behind bars because they're marrying, like, they'll have 10 wives under the age of 18. And what mom takes their 12-year-old to get married to the 80-year-old prophet, like a brainwashed person?
Yes. Oh, 100%. That
And
think they're
so,
doing the right thing.
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And so when you think of, not saying that everyone is brainwashed, but I'm just saying that it can be, it can go extreme. And that's
Yeah.
where it is so shocking. And we have to always check ourselves, like, where is our trust and what do we believe?
Mhm.
And it's typically not in a man or a woman or person. It's in God himself,
And we want victims to hear this too, survivors to hear this too, because if you were hurt by somebody who claimed to be a man of God or whatever, they aren't. They aren't. That's not who God is.
Yeah.
That's not what God wanted for your life.
I have another quick story.
Please. I have to, if you're watching on YouTube, I have to move this because I have to bend my knee or I'm going to scream.
Yeah, do what you need to do.
Sorry.
There you go. Take care of yourself. Yes. I'll just share this really quick story because now I'm all riled up and I was tired when we started and now but this other quick story that I heard was this woman wrote an email to her cousin who said, I know you hurt me in this room and in this room and at this time and in this time and in this time. And the guy wrote back and basically said, I already said I was sorry. I was hurt too. This is not like, this is something that goes on in our family and we are breaking the curse, like all this kind of stuff. Needless to say, that lady, so now it's all in writing. And this girl is pressing charges. And the guy happens to have a YouTube channel of over 3 million. And so it's like, he's a popular dude. And his whole, every single, pretty much most of the people on his YouTube team quit.
Yeah.
They all resigned. They said, this was years and years ago. But they said, no, we don't trust you. And now that this cousin is coming forward, others are coming forward as well. And so it is, again, it was so cool to hear the story of, number one, the first inclination is to believe. And maybe it wasn't to believe the survivor, because at first you go, wait, what? And then it was like, wait, no, we have to hear this out. And so the charges are being pressed, more stories are coming forward, and the survivors are being believed. And especially because she has this conversation in writing where he admitted to it, I think it'll hopefully be good evidence for her.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. But I thought it was fascinating when he said, this is what our family does. Like, this is what's normal in our family, and we are breaking it, but he justified it in a way.
And he was hurt too, so that's why he did it to her. And so that,
Right.
It's really not his fault.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
It was got me all riled up again too. But I love hearing survivors being listened to, believed, and investigation actually happening.
I want to share a story now.
Okay, go ahead.
And you know the story because somebody that we know shared it with us. I won't say who, but this goes back to believing victims. A girl, her daughter, who was 2 years old, told her that so-and-so was touching her in places that he shouldn't have been. And so she goes to the police about this man, and come to find out, when she herself was 2 years old, a report had been made that he also had been sexually abusing her. And so she believed her 2-year-old. Oftentimes we hear a 2-year-old say something like that and we brush it off or whatever, like, you're too young to whatever, you're just saying stuff. Believe them. Believe them. And here she had proof that it had happened to her as well. And nothing had ever come of it. But now, hopefully, change is going to be happening and he'll go to jail, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. So is it Eastview? Is that right?
It's Eastview Christian Church.
Eastview Christian Church. Great job.
Yes. Great job, guys. Seriously.
Great job of putting truth above your pastor. Like, I don't know, like deciding that what these survivors have experienced deserves a voice and being transparent about it.
Yes. You guys are going to lead the way for other churches to do it right and other victims to feel safe. Like, you're not just helping the victims in your church by doing it right. You're helping victims all over the country because you're a huge church. People are going to be looking to you for advice. And this is going to help a lot of victims. And I'm so thankful. I'm just so, so thankful.
Amen. Well, very cool. And it's always fun because, as you can see, we get riled up over the bad stuff, but we also get riled up over the good stuff because we know the ripple effect that it's going to have, not just on those 2016 letters and those ladies, but more people in the church who now have the space to come forward and start the healing journey.
Correct. Yes.
All right. I'm going to end with an I declare. Is there anything else that you want to add before we close up for today?
I think that's it. I woke you up, so you're ready. You're fired up, ready to go.
You did. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Definitely check out the website, stopsuffering.org. We have a resources page. We have the ability to sign up for a newsletter and get monthly updates from us. We are also starting another 90-day U-turn round in the next month. And so this month, in the next few weeks here, we're going to do an informational Zoom for those that are interested in being a part of the next round. So be sure you can sign up to be on the waiting list, and then we'll email you that Zoom information so you can be a part of it if you're interested in learning about how to join 90 Day U-Turn and what it's all about. There's no commitment. You're just learning. And then we also have the Reflecting Ownership group, and we're going to go live in there this month as well for those who are going through the workbook. And we look forward to supporting you on that journey as well. So lots of fun things happening. And is that all? Any other updates? Okay. All right. I'm going to end with an I declare. This is a good one. I declare I live victoriously. I was created in the image of God. I have the DNA of a winner. I am wearing a crown of favor. Royal blood flows through my veins. I am the head, never the tail, above, never beneath. I live with purpose, passion, and praise, knowing that I am destined to live in victory. This is my declaration, and this is my declaration for you. Have an awesome day, you guys, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to this powerful episode of Stop Suffering in Silence. If you are interested in booking Rachel to speak at your school, your church, or on your podcast, then please email openblindeyes@protonmail.com. If you are interested in sponsoring a survivor on their healing journey and would like to donate to Stop SIS, then please check out the link in the description box or show notes below, or you can email stopsis@protonmail.com. And finally, if you are currently suffering in silence, or you know somebody who is, whether they're dealing with a current trauma or one from the past, then we will always recommend that you reach out to your local resources and find a counselor that you can trust, because nobody is meant to suffer alone. Have an amazing week, and thank you for being here.